The words echoed sharply across the cabin, slicing through the hum of conversation and the low whirring of the plane's engines. Amina's heart pounded, her mind struggling to process what was happening. She had paid for a first-class seat, a gift from her father, the airline's owner, for her very first solo flight. Yet here was the flight attendant, standing over her with arms crossed, ordering her to vacate her seat. She glanced down at her ticket and then back up at the woman in uniform. There was no reason for this, none at all. Amina opened her mouth to protest, but the flight attendant didn't even give her a chance to speak. "You need to move now," the woman repeated, her voice laced with irritation. Her tone wasn't one of concern or care. It was dismissive, cold. Amina felt a wave of confusion wash over her. Was this a mistake? She stared around at the other passengers. No one met her gaze. Some pretended not to notice. Others turned away. "Do you have a problem?" the flight attendant barked, her voice sharp. Amina swallowed her pride. She could argue, could stand her ground, but who would listen? Who would believe her? Swallowing hard, Amina gripped the strap of her bag. The walk to economy felt like it stretched on forever. The shame burned in her chest. She had done nothing wrong, but here she was, treated like an intruder in a space that was rightfully hers. What the flight attendant didn't know, what no one knew, was that Amina's father owned the airline, and when he found out about this, there would be consequences. As Amina trudged to the back of the plane, her phone buzzed in her pocket. The text from her dad was short and simple. "Dad, everything okay? Have you boarded yet?" Her fingers hovered over the screen for a moment. She could tell him everything, but would he even believe it? "They made me move," she typed, her heart heavy. "Said I couldn't sit in first class." The reply came instantly. "Who made you move?" Amina hesitated, then typed, "The flight attendant." The phone buzzed again. "What's the flight number?" Her fingers flew across the keys as she sent the details. She knew her dad well enough to know that he wouldn't let this slide. Not for his daughter. Not for the injustice of it all. Meanwhile, up front, the flight attendant who had removed Amina from her seat was stirring her coffee, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing. Linda had seen it before. People sneaking into first class, trying to game the system. But this time, something didn't sit right. She had seen the way Amina had gathered her things so quickly, the nervousness in her demeanor. There was more to this than Linda had realized. "Did you check the manifest?" Hannah, another flight attendant, asked quietly. Linda rolled her eyes. "Didn't need to. She doesn't belong up there." Hannah frowned. "I saw her ticket. She's in first class." Linda waved it off. "Probably a mistake. You know how these things go." Before Hannah could respond, the intercom crackled to life. "Miss Thompson, report to the cockpit immediately." Linda froze. The captain never called unless something serious was happening. Setting her coffee aside, she smoothed her uniform and made her way to the front of the plane. Inside the cockpit, Captain James sat, his posture rigid. But it wasn't him that caught Linda's attention, it was the screen in front of him. A man's face filled the monitor, his sharp features radiating authority and quiet fury. "I'll ask you this only once." The man's calm voice rang out, but the weight behind it was unmistakable. "Why did you remove my daughter from her assigned seat?" Linda's stomach lurched. She recognized the voice instantly. Daniel Carter, the owner of the airline. "You told her she didn't belong," Daniel continued. "Would you like to explain why?" Linda could barely speak. She didn't know what to say. She had made a mistake, but she couldn't admit it to him yet. "Did you ask anyone else in first class to prove they belonged?" Daniel's voice cut through the silence like a knife. Linda didn't respond. She couldn't. The answer was clear. She had not. "You assumed she didn't belong," Daniel said sharply. "And now I'm assuming you'll be held accountable for your actions." Back in economy, Amina stared at her phone, waiting. The message from her dad appeared. "Stay in your seat. I'm handling this." Amina looked up as the intercom buzzed again. "Miss Carter, please return to your original seat in first class." She stared at Linda, whose stiff posture and averted gaze made it clear that something had changed. "A mistake," Linda had said. Amina raised an eyebrow. "A mistake?" she asked, her voice steady. Linda nodded, her face pale. "Yes, you may return to your assigned seat." Amina didn't reply immediately. She simply stood, adjusting the strap of her bag. The walk back to first class wasn't victorious. It wasn't smug, but something in the air had shifted. Passengers who had watched her leave now avoided her gaze. As Amina settled into her original seat, she turned to the flight attendant. "You didn't greet me when I first sat here," she said quietly. "You didn't offer me a drink. You didn't treat me like the others in first class." Linda shifted uncomfortably, her face reddening. "I apologize," she muttered, her voice forced. Amina took her time before replying, taking a slow sip of her sparkling water. "I texted my dad about you." Linda's stomach twisted. "I see," she murmured, but the unease in her voice was unmistakable. Amina simply nodded. "We'll see what happens when we land." At the front of the plane, the phone rang again. Linda picked it up, her hands shaking. "This is Miss Thompson," she said, her voice barely steady. "Linda." Daniel Carter's voice cut through the receiver with chilling calmness. "You will personally file a full report on this incident when we land. And for the remainder of this flight, my daughter will receive the same treatment as every other first-class passenger." The call ended with a soft click. Linda stood there, feeling the weight of her mistake crash down on her. When the plane landed, the usual rush of passengers unbuckling their seatbelts filled the air. But for Linda, each movement felt like a countdown to something worse. A uniformed officer approached her and didn't hesitate. "Miss Thompson, please come with us." Gasps and whispers spread through the cabin as Linda's face drained of color. She had been caught, and this wasn't going away. The officer led her off the plane, and Amina watched the scene unfold from her seat, her expression unreadable. 3 months later, Linda sat across from Daniel Carter at the airline's headquarters. Her file was open in front of him, and Amina sat beside him, arms crossed. "You finished the training?" Daniel asked, his voice cold. Linda nodded slowly, her voice soft. "I learned. I never really saw people. I thought I was just enforcing rules, but I was deciding who belonged without even realizing it." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "So if Amina walked onto your flight tomorrow, you treat her the same as anyone else?" Linda hesitated, then met Amina's gaze. "I would. No questions asked. She belongs." Amina nodded. Daniel set the file down, his tone softer now. "You're reinstated. On probation." Linda exhaled, knowing she had a second chance. Not just at her job, but at being better. Some lessons come easy. Others, like this one, shake the very ground beneath you. But true change doesn't happen until you decide to do something about it. If this story moved you, like and share it with others. Subscribe for more insane stories.